to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Our attendance, I'm the chairman, Lou Betts. To my right, Christine Steer is our vice chair. To my left is Rick DeLello, our board member. On my left, far left, is Wendy McKenna from Brayton Associates, our legal team. John Everett from CKS Engineering. Christian Jones, our assistant township manager, and Dan Domino, our full-time manager. We are announcements. You want to run with this, Christian?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This meeting is being recorded for future broadcast.
Okay, and first up, we have a work session with our planning commission. It's a joint planning commission board of supervisors work session.
You got to pull the mic a little bit closer to you, buddy.
Not working, phone. All right, so this is our work session, so proceed, Dan, if you want to introduce or...
Sure, absolutely. So tonight is a joint session between our Planning Commission and our Board of Supervisors. Its intention is to just have discussions about operational matters, potential things for the future, and really just to make sure that we have the opportunity every couple years. In this case, it's been a few years since we've done this, so to get on the same page and just make sure that the communication's smooth and you know, that's kind of the point.
Very good. You want to take lead on the chair?
Sure, thank you.
Introduce yourself and...
I'm Tony Sherm, Chair of the Planning Commission, and we appreciate the opportunity to come before the board and have a discussion about certain topics that would enable both of us to fulfill our duties in planning for the township. And I think that the first thing that we identified is communication, and the communication between the board and the Planning Commission and how that happens now is pretty spotty. I think that, you know, we're making recommendations to the board, but my understanding is the board's only getting the recommendation and that's it, and not a lot of the background material, or maybe not even the minutes of the Planning Commission, and you know what issues were discussed and perhaps highlighted. And I think that works the other way as well, Lou. You know, the board talks about, all right, let's let the Planning Commission do X, Y, and Z for this reason, and that doesn't really get to us either in those words. So, you know, perhaps that we need, and I don't know procedurally how, you know, what the best way to do that may be, but perhaps there's some mechanism through which we can improve that communication between us.
So, do you want?
Go ahead. Interview.
Well, back and forth. I mean, I think it's interactive. So, I mean, I guess there's a couple of things. First off, we appreciate you coming for the joint session. I think one of the things that we sort of got out of the cycle doing was the joint meeting, you know, in terms of there are periods of time. I think that cadence should happen probably twice a year, once in, you know, in terms of two, and then more if necessary, but a more structured cycle where you're coming before us in terms of where we can get direct communication with one another in terms of that. You know, the other element in terms of just generalized communication is understanding sort of what resources you guys need and want and aren't getting, you know, or feel you aren't getting, so that we can make sure that we're providing that better, for sure. I've said it in this public meeting many times. You know, I sat on the Planning Commission for a couple of years, many years ago, and ultimately, as an advisory board, you know, part of my choice as a supervisor was to give you space and room to advise, you know, as opposed to saying, vote this way, vote that way. But we also want to make sure you understand where we collectively and individually stand on issues too, in terms of that. So I don't know, Christine, you had talked, I know you've attended many Planning Commission meetings as an audience member, certainly I did as well, but now you're on this side of the table, maybe you
Yeah, and I
could
have to admit, normally when I'm here, you folks are up here and I'm out there, so this is very weird.
I don't know your thoughts on communication. So the first, I mean, I know we want to communicate to you in whatever mechanism ultimately gets you the information you need so you can advise us. I mean, we've got a series, we've got structured items where you have a land development plan that has something that has a more defined structure to it. We know that you need to vote on certain things. There's unstructured items. I think that's sometimes where we get a little bit astray. That's something that doesn't have a formal timetable. How do we get a timetable for it? What's reasonable to ask or not ask in terms of that? And I think we certainly have not succeeded there. You know, that's certainly that's a stress point I think we have felt on both sides, that we just haven't done that effectively on some of the things that aren't as simple as saying we have by this date, you have to make a decision on. You know, some things have a cadence to them and many things don't. And when they don't, what's the right way to make sure that it doesn't, you know, just sort of die out there after we started or you guys started, we just don't get it on a good cadence in terms of that.
One thing in that regard, if you recall, we used to get a plan.
Can you do me a favor just for the recording? I know it's hard.
Sure. One thing in that regard, as you recall, we used to have a planner all the time from
Yes.
Montgomery County. And I'm not saying that that's necessary, but these open-ended things, and one of the things that I found they were valuable for was keeping us on a schedule. You know, with that here's X, Y, and Z, and we're going to get that done. And you know, they come with that work
Right.
for us to look at. So that might be something we want to consider as well.
Anybody else?
So along the lines of what Tony has said in terms of communication, and I can appreciate what Rick is saying about not wanting to necessarily direct us on things that we need to react to. So there are submissions that come to us. Those we're reactive to. We have timeframes, we have guidelines that we know that we need to do that. It's all of the other stuff which we need to be proactive on. That would be helpful to, A, have some direction from the board. I am tremendously frustrated that stuff, and Bill has expressed it as well, stuff comes to planning and it dies there. So, as an example, township-owned properties, what can we do with them? And what do we have and what are we going to do with them? That came from the board. I don't know the exact date, but I'm going to say it was 3 years ago. We've addressed it a couple times, but I'm not creating the agenda. I've spoken up any number of times on what to do. I feel very strongly, and there's a couple open issues. I'll take the time now to express that opinion. I feel that any piece of legislation that affects any of our ordinances ought to be reviewed by planning before it goes to you, even if it's as simple as a comma or the change of a particular word. Those can be simple opportunities, but as an example, on the agenda tonight for the regular work session, for the regular business meeting, is a update to the stormwater ordinance. I would find that to be incredibly important for the township. It's probably 60 or 80 pages long. Planning hasn't looked at that. Planning hasn't been asked to look at that. I don't know if the proposed changes are 2 words out of the 60 pages or if it's a complete rewrite. But that's an opportunity, and the reason I think that that's important is that's an opportunity on any issue for the town residents to show up at a planning meeting, have the opportunity to have more interaction rather than here's an agenda item and we're going to vote on it. So there's 2 opportunities. They could come before planning. We have a crack at it. It might take us 2 or 3 meetings. It might take a single meeting to address that. But whether it's signage, that's been presented to us more than 9 months ago. And any number of times we ask for modifications, they don't happen, or they do happen, and then those die. So you could be frustrated. I'm beyond frustrated in terms of how we can get these things to be addressed in front of us. I have plenty of ideas. I've voiced my opinions at many meetings on how those need to be addressed, but I don't create the agenda. And so whether it's, as Tony suggests, an outside agency, or Bill and I have had some separate conversations about a solicitor for our own commission, whether it's the same as the township's solicitor or an independent solicitor. That would give us some additional direction. We happen to have 2 attorneys on our commission, but I don't think that they want to be advising us legally on the work that they're doing. So, you know, as we rewrite legislation, you know, presumably at some point in time it's going before a legal review, but we're not hearing that. So those are all of the things that I would, the reactive stuff is going to dictate that, but getting all of these other components, signage, small land development, data centers, stormwater, those are just a couple of the things that are out there. And we ought to have all of these activities to fill in. Also, I'll take the 2 minutes to suggest that on the small land development plan that's out there, that's come before us, it was suggested that planning would be removed from that process altogether. And I strongly disagree with that. I've expressed that at the planning meetings. I think that if it's a very straightforward subdivision, 1 lot to 2, or a line moving on a particular lot, all of that same work needs to happen, and they could come before us. They could ask for a preliminary and a final at the same time. I strongly support modifying what we have and making it simpler for those, not having a single one-size-fits-all for land development, because not every development is the same. So I strongly support that, but that's in concert with, we went through and we modified all of our fee schedule, unfortunately, and raised those significantly, creating the problem, or exasperating the problem even more so. So if we were having these conversations more frequently, we could say, we're in the process of doing this. Why don't you guys also consider modifying the fee schedule so that it reflects the work that's actually taking place?
So how do you feel, well, how do you feel your structure as a commission isn't adequate now? You know, how do you feel, so you've talked a couple times about sort of having call it a facilitator of some sort. We used to have Montgomery County, as Tony mentioned, we had the Montgomery County Planning Commission, had somebody that participated in every one of those. The concern through years was whether the county was moving the commission in county directions that may or may not have always supported what the individual township desired, and somewhere along the way that got removed from the equation in terms of, it's a paid, you know, contract that we had with the county. I mean, that's certainly, we can look at doing that again. The question is, do you think that's the resource? You know, do you think we should be hiring internally? And we've also had the manager often be the liaison between the Planning Commission and this. You know, do you feel that that's an effective individual for that? You know, they all wear a lot of hats. We're a smaller township. Or do we think it should be a unique individual, somebody that sort of lives entirely sort of in a planning role that sort of sits as the liaison who can handle the pieces of communication that need to get back and forth? You know, a couple times a year meeting here is one piece of it, but it's not adequate. You know, as you're saying, you know, it's not getting the little pieces along the way, because we certainly sometimes feel that we've passed that direction down. And we also want to hear it as the commission collectively, because I know that there's differing opinions on the small project, you know, the small, you know, in terms of cross, which is fine. That's what the advisory role should be there, you know, that you guys can build some consensus to come back to us to either say, we all don't like it, we all sort of like it, here are some of the things we don't like. But if you're making suggestions on changes, we also want to make sure they're getting incorporated into, it doesn't do either one of us any good if you don't feel you have the tools and we don't feel we're getting the outcomes. We certainly want to support getting that.
Agreed, and I think that the component of the communication and talking about what Bob was talking about with the open space, I feel I had no direction with respect to that. Here's the open space, tell us what to do with it, or, there was, in what form did I want it? I didn't feel like I was directed enough to produce something. And, we spent time on that. We spent time debating the ordinances and these small projects and the sign ordinance we're debating. And I think that, we don't want to waste our time doing that either. We want to be productive and helpful to what, ultimately you as the decision makers want to hear and really want us to help you establish.
Do you feel you can handle that project? If it was, so the open space in terms of inventorying, what do we have? Just physical inventories? I know there was just trying to get out and do site visits and Bob, you certainly can attest to this. It was somehow was hard to get a date and a time that you could get people to a site visit, and those sorts of things. Do you think that the commission is a good venue for that, or does it require sort of some outside input?
Well, I feel that first of all, you have 6 dedicated citizens who are willing to put their time in, and I know you three know this, that there's each one of us brings something uniquely talented to this task that I think is beneficial to the township, and that, yes, I think that, those qualifications with our professional staff, we do have the ability, to make, and I think we do that, to make education, reason decisions and pass along, and, but it also strikes me that, if there's a 3-2 vote of the planning commission, you don't really get the benefit of, what the 2 people who were against it, what was their issues, and you kind of start out from scratch again, and that doesn't seem right either. So I just think there's I really think a lot of it's a communication issue, and you're right that there was, these meetings are helpful, certainly. I don't disagree with that.
I'd like to hear from Jennifer and the rest of the.
Sure, absolutely.
We got enough?
Yep. No, I got it. I'll just lean in like this. Okay. So no, I think at least 2 meetings a year, I don't want to over stress everybody, but this is helpful to get an idea of what the priorities are. For us, we have a little bit of trouble, especially with the open space, like wrangling in what exactly is the priority. We can get it done, but we just need a little bit of guidance. Like, say we did a meeting in January and a meeting in June. In the January meeting, you can list like, okay, these are our priorities for the first 6 months of the year. We're going to tackle X, Y, and Z. If we can get through that, then we'll do this, this, and this. And then I know they kind of had to be shoehorned in between the land development and the submittals that are coming in on a regular basis. But that would give us a good starting point as to sometimes we don't have anything on our agenda and we're like, do we cancel the meeting? Do we have the meeting? So if we had like a list of things, okay, this is what we want to accomplish by this date, and if we did that twice a year, I think that would make big improvements in kind of how we're, as opposed to now we're just kind of winging it.
2 meetings a month, how about that? Would you get more done?
No, not for 2 meetings a month.
Throw that out there.
It's a good question. I can tell you that this board doesn't want you canceling meetings ever.
Right.
But if you don't have things, it's incumbent on us to make sure that there's a working.
We have things, we just need to be a little more organized about what
Right.
we need to be reviewing, so.
Okay.
Always chime in, Christine.
I think
For example, talking about the open space, right? I think as a commission, we had a little trouble determining what that amounts to. I think there are some members that think the goal is to get every township member out to utilize every open space as much as humanly possible. And some think maybe the open space should stay open, right? Because not all the parcels are large enough to have everyone constantly walking through or coming through. And it'd be helpful to hear, what do the supervisors think should happen to, I mean, there's a lot of preserved open space, right?
Right.
Is the goal to keep it open space the way it's always been, or is the goal to see how many people we can have walk through it?
So I can tell you specifically on that project, what we were trying to get to was saying, so what do we have? You know, a general inventory of what we physically have. What is what you would call usable open space for parks and ball fields, and what do we think we need? So we have an opportunity, hypothetical, not real, it isn't out there, somebody where there's another parcel that's available for acquisition. And certainly the township has had a long history of acquiring property. So we have an opportunity, and it comes before us. Well, part of what we were starting to say is, okay, some people feel if a parcel becomes available, buy it. No matter what, just buy it, acquire it. That's and part of what we were trying to do at the time was saying, well, what do we have? Like we can talk generally, 1,000 acres or 1,500 acres or how many sort of fall under that agriculture or open space, but ultimately, what does the township need collectively? And trying to get some sense of saying we have, twice a year we have soccer issues, with too many soccer kids and not enough fields. But it's not necessarily a 12-month problem. Just trying to get the sense was to try to say, how can we inventory what we have, get some sense of what buckets we're filling? So to your point, what parks do we have that are just beautification experiences in that kind of stuff?
And I think that's the issue we all encountered, right? Because the majority of parcels are not large parcels, right? A lot of them are small. Like there's one on Bethel Road in the middle that's like, I don't know, a very small parcel where you get to that.
Right.
You really can't do much with that. That seems to be the majority of the parcels. Then there are some that are larger, right, where they could be utilized for different things. I think Dan did a great job and inventoried all of them. I think they're all in an inventory right now. Is that correct? They're all inventoried, right? No, we don't know. We know where they are, right, in terms of where they are. It becomes a matter of, again, what's the goal? So we know where they are. Is the goal to see, like, are we looking for soccer fields? Are we looking for baseball fields? What would you like us to do?
Well, part of it is just trying to understand, what do we have? So we don't know necessarily every one of those strips. If you look and say, we've got 1,000 acres, and we were able to determine that 150 acres of that are little strips of cut-togethers from various developments that really don't have any practical use other than being pretty. Okay, we're now down to 800. And then we say, okay, well, we've got Hebner Park, and that's how many acres, and how many acres, and what ball fields are we serving today or not serving? How many do we have? I don't know the answer to that. So if an opportunity came to me, I know Hebner Park's a beautiful park. A lot of people walk there. A lot of people play baseball there. They play lacrosse there. They play soccer there. But I don't know how many physical fields we have. And does the community need any more? Are we getting pressure to every season? Like that's the kind of stuff that prompted hey, we should do this. Or try to do this. We actually went for a grant initially to get somebody to sort of help us with that and didn't get the grant. So we said, okay, well, let's try to create a way that the Planning Commission could do that.
So then maybe would a way to streamline it be to look at the larger parcels and really not look at the parcels that really may not have that ability?
I can tell you, I was open to any concept of how your commission could sort of look at it and come up with a way that you thought made sense. But you're right, I didn't have perfect direction to provide because we weren't exactly sure what it is that we're trying to accomplish either on some of that stuff. Other than what we wanted to avoid was saying if we had opportunities to buy more land for whatever reason, did it fit some bigger picture? I know Bill has many times talked about trails and saying, okay, we've got easements on a lot of trails, but we haven't collectively strung them all together in terms of that, which everybody supports the trail system, but, okay, how do we actually convert that to trails on properties that are connected to other things? We've been working for 7 years to connect to Evansburg State Park, and it is, I'm not gonna put Dan on the spot, but I mean, it's been an exhaustive process that everyone wanted to do and was approved. Like, we had to go through step after step after step, just so we can connect that portion of the trail to Evansburg State Park, and it just takes forever and a day. Like, and we're not being slow to that, that's just the way that stuff works. But we want to figure out other more efficient ways we can get you guys organized around it. Are there better things, better tools we can provide to you? Now, the solicitor, what I would say is, the solicitor should always be available to you if you have matters that require that legal input. It should always be available to it. I don't know that you need one at every meeting on every topic. I don't know. I mean, that's an open question. Certainly, I don't think any of us would be not supportive to provide that.
That's not an open question, that's statute, township code.
You have one, Bill. You have one.
Not at the meetings to give legal advice. It's in the statute, and it's not been done. It's code. We're enforcing our code, we follow our code, we not follow our code.
If I may, the MPC dictates that the board has a attorney assigned to them. It does not dictate any sort of attendance at every meeting, just to be clear.
So the question then becomes, Bill, whether you,
Let me read the code to you, Dan.
we'll check on that, Bill, but I'm not sure that you're accurate. I'm not sure, but I don't want to get bogged. Hey, Bill, this is not the place for that. But if you feel you,
Solicitor shall serve the planning commission as a legal advisor. How can they serve if they're not there?
they can serve in a variety of ways, Bill, because we're drafting,
Fashion, when there's a group together to make a decision, they need timely legal advice.
I'd like the collective board to decide if that's what they need in every meeting. That's information that you can provide to us. We're not going to take it as a one-off item. But yeah, if you guys feel that in every single meeting, on every topic, on everything, that that is a necessary element, that's the ask that we'd want you to make.
I believe they're requesting one, and I believe if it is a statute, I believe we have to provide one. And if they need their own independent counsel, I believe it's our duty to do that. I'd like Christine.
Yeah, no, I agree too. I mean, if that is, I mean, I agree with a lot of the things that are being said as far as, communication. One of the reasons I go to the Planning Commission meetings, even, it's not a requirement, but I want to be able to hear the different discussion because I think it's important to know. I mean, I value the Planning Commission because I think, number one, they're made up of residents of this town, so they live in the community just like I do, and they have opinions, and some folks have lived here a lot longer than me, and I really do want to hear their thoughts and perspectives on the impact of development or the ordinances or what have you. So, I agree that they all bring a lot of skill and talent that we need for, to assess what's happening in our township. And they all, I agree with Tony, they're all very dedicated. They take what they're doing very seriously. At the same time, I don't want to put my opinions at, I want the board to act independently and make whatever recommendation that you think is the best based on the information that you get, so that we have, 5, 6 members in the town that are, hearing the developers, hearing, what's being proposed, hearing from the township engineer, and watching a project, from a sketch plan move all the way through and giving us that valuable information. I agree that somehow we probably should get the minutes. I mean, I have the benefit of hearing their discussion, but I know not everyone has the opportunity to go to those meetings, so maybe getting the minutes and exchanging minutes could be something that would be helpful. I don't know if the, the manager, he's doing a lot of things already. I don't know if that's something that he can help facilitate. the transfer of information back and forth, you know, or if there should be someone else to do that, you know, I'm open to that. And as far as the solicitor in attendance, if that's a tool that you folks think that you need to make your job easier, then I support that as well.
I agree. I think that
Just wanted to make one other comment. So the data centers is obviously a very big and a very timely issue. Would it be too much to ask perhaps if the township solicitor could help us with drafting that ordinance? Because I think it's going to be a huge issue and it's very timely. And it's probably going to end up being contested in court. I know other townships are going through the court system now with data centers. Does the board agree that we really need to have an ordinance on data centers as soon as possible?
it seems to be the hot topic, so yeah, you want to be proactive. As far as addressing Bill, I mean, I do believe that they need their own independent attorney to follow the law and again, advise you on what you can and cannot do, or what you can and cannot advise. Sure?
We just got to turn you on there.
Okay, so if I could jump in with respect to that. So the township solicitor in many municipalities attends the planning commission meeting. So in the event that that is the wish of the board, then generally what occurs is that the township solicitor attends the planning commission meeting. In Worcester, for whatever reason, that hasn't been the norm. There have been times from time to time when we have been asked to attend the meeting, but I'm more than happy for my firm to attend the meeting. That is the normal course. If there was the desire for a different attorney to be appointed, that's up to this board to make that determination. So it wouldn't be the planning commission, but that's something that this board would have to essentially determine that you wish to appoint a separate attorney for the planning commission. It's not common. The more common practice is that the township solicitor also serves as the planning commission attorney, because in fact, the planning commission is an advisory board to the township. They are providing their advice with respect to ordinances that the supervisors are ultimately adopting. So for the sake of continuity, generally speaking, there is just one firm that handles that. But I'll certainly defer to the supervisors on that.
I mean, do you think we should, we're not going to make a decision right this second, but
No,
I believe
I
they
mean-
need guidance, and I believe they need,
I don't have any issue giving you Wendy, or
Either
I don't
way.
think any of us have any issue doing that, if that's what you're, I don't, but sure. What's that?
I didn't want to cut you off. You were
No, we all agree, we just ultimately need to decide on the mechanic of whether it's Wendy or whether it be something else, but we want you to have the resource you think you need to have, for sure. And if that's a solicitor at every meeting, then that's the starting point.
The only additional comment that I'd like to make is,
Sure.
and I somewhat respectfully disagree with Lee in terms of, we could certainly focus on the larger projects or the larger properties, that they would have more opportunities. But I think that it's important for us to address all of the township properties. That's how we were originally tasked with that. And in particular, Nike Park is a small park, and we have a debacle there. We have created a problem that if we had been addressing all along, this is what we own, this is what we can do with it, and we had been looking at any easements or restrictions or what we can or can't do, that's how I envisioned this whole project taking place. And now we have a structure that apparently we don't want to move, and we're contemplating.
We're working with the government to get that corrected.
I understand, but my 2 cents on that is I've heard that we're contemplating taking a property that we could own and trading that off and making that never to be developed again. When that property was purchased by the township under the impression that it was going to be sold and leveraged into additional or greater open space than what it originally had. We wouldn't be in that situation had this process been accomplished before then. We know what we have, we know what we can do with it. it could be stated as, remain as open space. But if we had done all of the homework beforehand and not just proceeded, and that's where I think it's important that we look at every property, including these little slivers that are an acre and a half or whatever.
I think you should do both. I think but it's, it's the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I think you should do them both. But ultimately, part of what we tried to get to was, can you pick one property? Can you pick one and take it through the exercise and then tell us, what's wrong with the exercise? Where's the flaw in the exercise, in terms of doing one property? I don't care whether it's a big property or a small property or something in between, but if we can pick one and sort of take it through whatever the steps are we say we should do, to your point, does it have any kind of a deed restriction? Does it have, how's it being used currently? What are the, just whatever those pieces happen to be, 8 or 9 questions, 10 questions, whatever it happens to be, we can help you. I think we had drafted questions at one point, but if you can do it for one, complete it, and then we get some framework that says, okay, this was not, it was disorganized, it was a mess, it was this, it was that, or, hey, this worked. Okay, can we apply it to another one? Can we apply it to another one? I mean, I think eventually you've got to get to them all, but we need to start with one, and I would defer to your board if you could even handpick which one you think might make sense. That's fine. It's just trying to get one done and then go from there. And again, that was my pet project 4 years ago or 3 years ago when it got started, and obviously it didn't get where it was intended to go. But hey, to be clear, here's where we are. We're just going to keep trying to take a step forward to all the things. I'm not hearing anything. We can quibble a little bit about some of the details, but we're not in disagreement on any of the things that, when we talked last month as a board, but we're just, occasionally we've got to figure out structurally how to do that better. So.
Christine, you have any more? For the Board of Planning to identify anything, or we're good? Right?
No, the only other issue that, and again, I agree with what Rick was saying earlier, as far as the work that you need to accomplish. I can't see putting a timeline or a deadline, because some things will be very easy and run through quickly, and there are other things that take time, and time means it could be several meetings, which means several months. But, from my perspective, as, a new member of the board, I know in January you had a sign ordinance, and then in March there was the small projects ordinance, and now we're talking about a data center ordinance. And it's like adding, but nothing, the circle's not complete on any one of those things. So, I do appreciate what Lee said. Data centers are a huge priority, for this area and for, all across the state. So I definitely think that there might have to be a prioritization of what you folks are working on. But at the same time, it would be nice to see the loop, the circle closed on at least one of the ordinances, because I'm sure it's frustrating to you too. It's just like, you talked about the sign ordinance in January, we're now in June. If you pick that up, what did we talk about? You kind of have to almost start from scratch to some degree. So again, and that's not a criticism of you folks at all. I understand that, things come onto your agenda that take priority, with regard to land development and what have you. But, maybe if internally you folks can find a way, and working, I guess, with either the solicitor if she assists, or with the manager, and trying to find a way to get through some of these outstanding things that have been kind of hanging out for a little bit. But again, I don't really feel comfortable saying you must have this done within 1 meeting or 2 meetings. That's ridiculous. Certain things, things take time, and you have to be able to talk about them fully. And it's through that discussion that additional issues might come up that necessitate further discussion, so.
Sure.
Probably get a report from Dan about what happened in front of the board and what the board, advised. And I know that he talked about the fact that it's not filtered, but it's still that information, and perhaps
I'm fine with that. I talk to Dan after your meetings every month. And before Dan, it was Sean, and before Sean and Jay and all, I talked to them separately every month after what happened on the different things and who said what. But I've also been very clear not to try to tell you, this is how you should vote, or this is, I want you to know what I think, but I don't want to tell you, like, you lose your advisory value if I'm just leaning on, that was my experience, because I had somebody at that time who was leaning on me very heavily when I was on the Planning Commission, and I didn't think that was particularly constructive at the time. That's all. But, again,
Anybody else on the board want to present any more? Or? You're welcome. Let's continue this process, sure. Let's give it a minute.
yeah. Sure.
All right? You all right? Yeah. Think that was good? I thought it was pretty productive. Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, I see why. What's the matter?
I'm just wondering about the order of the things that we have here. Like up here, we're talking about a public hearing, but we're also, that's, right, but it's also down here.
I said that too. She already identified that. Public comment. It's on the agenda. We're gonna do the dance, and we're still gonna approve. I mean, Wendy just, she explained it to me. So, say something. You want to ask Wendy if you want to put.
Yeah.
Wendy. You don't seem like you're okay. You look red in the face and pissed. This place is refrigerator, that's why I wear a coat all the time. That's all over the company.
I think that's typically how we do that, yeah.
Already made by people, most of it.
So what she's just saying is at the end of the hearing, we can pull this item up here to vote on it, which is what we typically do.
So we're gonna put 5 right after the,
So when you do the public hearing, it then typically,
we're gonna go to 5.
then you would go down to, yeah, wherever 5 is, we would vote on that.
5 is the discussion motion.
Right.
Okay. You, Wendy, ready? Thank you very much. We're going to move forward to the public hearing and adoption of a 2022 Worcester Township Comprehensive Plan. Wendy, would you like to take over?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So we have on the agenda a public hearing with regard to adoption of the 2022 Worcester Township Comprehensive Plan. So at this time, I will officially open the public hearing. And as solicitor, I have several exhibits that I will mark. And then there will be the opportunity for anyone to make public comment with respect to the with respect to the comprehensive plan. And then we will close the hearing and the board will consider, we have item number 5 under our action items. It's a motion with respect to adoption of the comprehensive plan. So we'll take that matter out of order upon the close of the public hearing. So a public hearing is required under the municipality's planning code as part of the adoption process for a comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan is essentially a planning document. It's not an ordinance, but it is a planning document that the municipality adopts, and it is something that every 10 years the municipality reviews. So the exhibits that I have, I'll just run down them. Exhibit T1 is the legal notice, and that's the legal notice of this public hearing this evening. Exhibit T2 is the affidavit of publication from the newspaper that it was published in the Times Herald on June 3rd and June 10th, 2026. Exhibit T3 is the Worcester Township Planning Commission meeting agenda of November 10th, 2022, when the comprehensive plan was reviewed by the Planning Commission. Exhibit T4 is the Worcester Township Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of May 20th, 2026, authorizing advertisement of this public hearing. Exhibit T5 is the Montgomery County Planning Commission review letter dated May 7th, 2026, and that correspondence indicates that the Montgomery County Planning Commission has reviewed the comprehensive plan and supports its adoption, with one minor comment that the document was initially drafted or prepared in 2022 and yet is being adopted, that be noted on the document itself. The next item is an email correspondence from the township manager to the surrounding municipalities and the school district. That was correspondence from the township manager on March 24th, forwarding the comprehensive plan to the surrounding municipalities and the school district, and for their review and requesting comment if they should have any. That's a requirement of the municipality's planning code with respect to adoption of a comprehensive plan. There was, the next item I have is Exhibit T7, which is the one response that was received by the township. That was from Whitpain Township, and essentially, I'll summarize it, that it's from their township engineer. It states that we have reviewed the plan and have no specific comments to offer at this time concerning its content. We commend the township for undertaking the comprehensive plan and are impressed with the overall format and the level of detail. So that was from Whitpain Township. And then the last item I have is the resolution itself that provides for adoption of the comprehensive plan. So those are all the items that are exhibits for the public hearing this evening. The comprehensive plan, as noted, had been worked on for quite some time and had been reviewed by our Planning Commission, had been reviewed by the County Planning Commission. It had been placed on hold for some time due to some litigation, but now it is appropriate for adoption. So with that, I'll open the floor and see if there's anybody that has any comments or questions that they'd like to put forth with respect to the plan, the comprehensive plan. And if so, I'd ask that you come to the microphone. And it appears that we have none. So with that, I'll close the public comment period, and then I'll ask the board, do you have any comments or questions that you'd like to put forth with respect to the plan?
I just wanted to clarify, when you said that there was litigation, it wasn't litigation over the comprehensive plan
No, that is
itself.
correct. That is correct.
Rick?
I don't. I've spoken quite a bit about it. We had a task force for 2 years. I think they did an exceptional job. I think our planning commission did a great job. I think I'm fully supportive of moving forward with it.
And this plan moving forward, we're going to, I guess, start over again on the next version of it, but at this point, we're going to pass it and
Very quickly.
move on to the next one, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I guess we're going to jump to number 5. You've closed
So,
the,
right, so now, if there's no more, no public comment and nothing more from the board, I'll close the public hearing. So the public hearing is now closed. Reopen the board meeting agenda, and then the board can consider adoption of item number 5, which is Resolution 2026-13, adopting the 2022 Worcester Township Comprehensive Plan.
you want to?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, make a motion that we approve Resolution 2026-13, which would be adoption of the 2022 Worcester Township Comprehensive Plan.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any public comment at all? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3. So we're going to jump back up to, again, public comment on anything, I guess. Is there any public comment on any item? Seeing none. We're going to move to our official action items, which is our consent agenda. Either Christina or Rick, make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the consent agenda that includes the following items. It's our May 20th business meeting minutes and the treasurer's report and other monthly reports, the monthly bill payment in the amount of $329,658.51.
I second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any public comment on our agenda? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Excuse me. So on moving forward, our motion 1 is a discussion motion on our resolution 2026-11 for preliminary land development for approval for City View Apartments. Dan?
Yes, the developer of those apartments is here to answer any questions you or the public may have about the project. We also are going to have some data up on the board, so everybody can see it.
Good evening, Matt McHugh from Claire Harrison, Harvey Brandsburg. I'm the land use attorney for the City View Apartments project here on behalf of the developer, BT Worcester. I also have with me members of the project team, Peter Clellan on behalf of the developer, David Stewart from T&M Associates, the civil engineer, and Matt Hammond from TPD Traffic Planning and Design, which is our traffic engineer. I think as everybody knows, we're here tonight for consideration by the board for preliminary plan approval for the City View apartment project. The property in question is located at 2974 Germantown Pike at the intersection of Germantown and Park Avenue, and known as the Dubner property. It's in a approximately 14-acre parcel located in the C Commercial Zoning District and the Multi-Residential Use Overlay District. When the project was originally submitted in 2022, it was shown as a 180-unit multifamily project. It's since been revised and reduced to 144 units, and that's currently what's before the board this evening. David Stewart from T&M will go through a little bit in higher level detail some of the high level points of the project, and I'll turn it over to him momentarily. But I think it's important to note the 144 units and the multifamily use and the density that we are contemplating here are permitted by right uses for the project. No zoning relief is required in connection with the preliminary plan approval that is before the board this evening. We have on receipt of the review letters. They are all will comply. There will be a final plan submission if the preliminary plan is approved. At that time, we will demonstrate compliance, update the plans, provide any other evidence of conditions of approval. But in particular, the ones that are in the resolution that will comply are the February 2026 Arrow review letter regarding the sewer planning module, the April 17, 2026 Arrow review letter with respect to the preliminary plan, the Bowman review letter dated February 5th, 2026 with respect to traffic, the Fire Marshal review letter dated April 16th, 2026, and the Montgomery County Planning Commission review letter dated April 22nd, 2026. We have 5 waivers from the Saldo that we're seeking. David will go into a little bit more detail on those. But we've received a draft of the resolution granting preliminary plan approval or conditional preliminary plan approval. We're in agreement with everything that's in there, and ultimately, at the end of our presentation tonight and after public comment, we'll be asking that the board act favorably, grant that preliminary plan approval, and adopt the resolution. So with that, I'll turn it over quickly to David Stewart from T&M to kind of run through the plan, answer any questions you may have, and the rest of the team's here. So, David.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Again, my name is David Stewart. I'm with T&M Associates. We are the civil engineers for the project. I am the project manager for the project. I'm going to give you just a high-level overview. Feel free to ask any questions as I go through it. This would be great. This could be a conversation, and just feel free to interrupt me at any point. As previously mentioned, the subject parcels at 2974 Germantown Pike, right down the street. We have North Park Avenue to the north, Germantown to the plan right. Heritage Village is to plan south, and Providence Crossing is to the left. As I'm sure all the residents are aware, previously this was a light commercial, light industrial site, and our client is proposing to redevelop it into 2 multi-residential buildings. The old or previous layout had multiple entrances into the parcel off of Germantown Pike, and you'll get a better picture of this in future drawings. But we're proposing 1 access off of Germantown Pike, which would be full access, and then 1 off of North Park Avenue there. Dan, can you go to the next one? This gives somewhat of a better view of what's being proposed. You can scroll just a little bit down. There we go. So as previously mentioned, and this is just showing Germantown Pike on the right. Driveway A is shown there as a full access that allows cars to turn right in, right out, left in, left out. And then this represents building 2. There is a new 10-foot pedestrian path along Germantown Pike, and then there is pedestrian connection into the parcel from the intersection of North Park Avenue and Germantown Pike. And additionally, another pedestrian entrance into the parcel off of Germantown Pike. And then you go to the next one. And then as previously mentioned, this is the access off of North Park Avenue. This provides for right in, left in, and then residents would be able to make a right out. You would not be allowed to make a left out, so this is not a full access driveway. You would be able to make a right into the parcel, and then a left into the parcel, and then residents can only make a right out. But you can't make a left out. You cannot make a left out. You can make a left in, yes, you can. This is building 1, as shown in the previous plan. Just to go through some of the amenities that our client is proposing, there is a central courtyard between the 2 buildings that allows for a tot lot, a dog park, bocce courts, a pool deck, and grilling areas. The trash rooms are located within the buildings, so you will not see dumpsters throughout the site. That is one of the trash rooms there, and it allows for the dumpsters to be rolled out and picked up on a daily or weekly basis. Outside of that, there are 289 parking spaces that are proposed, 288 are required. The development is by right, so we are not seeking any variances as previously mentioned. And then there are, as far as stormwater management is concerned, we are proposing 2 underground basins and 1 above ground basin. They're designed in accordance with the township regulations and DEP's design for managed release concept. We did stormwater testing across the site, and we cannot infiltrate, so we're doing the managed release concept for the stormwater management. As far as utilities are concerned, the site will be served by American Water. We're proposing a domestic tap and a fire tap. And as far as sanitary, it would be collected and will go to the pumping station in Heritage Village. As far as landscaping, we have softening buffers, screening buffers, street requirements for within the basin, plantings around the basin. We are complying with all of those. And as far as lighting, we are in compliance as well. 12-foot pole lights, and they are proposed throughout the site. So I can stop there. I can answer any questions.
Yeah, can you talk about the environmental remediation piece, or is that something you're going to cover a little bit later?
So yes, a phase 1 and a phase 2 were completed on site that identified, when you do a phase 1, you go through and look at the historical records.
I need you to talk a little slower. You're talking.
Sorry. So a phase 1 study was done for the site, You go through, you look at historical records and see if there may be anything that is on the site, which then something was identified. A phase 2 study was done in which there were identified 5 areas of soil contamination within the site. So if this project is approved and it moves forward, those 5 areas would be, those areas of soil will be removed and taken to a treatment facility. They will not remain on site.
Well, you have to clean it up. I guess I'm going to say it is
Correct.
more cleanly. I mean, you need to clean that up.
We would
It's
need
not a
to-
maybe.
No, we would dig it up. The soil would be removed, so it would be dug up and then taken off-site. So that is how we're going to,
Right, but you have to go through a whole process to then get DEP's approval.
correct,
You
yeah.
did the- So
Subject to DEP requirements in accordance with all applicable laws.
it's Act 2, correct? Am I saying it? So, which in essence says that you agree to do this on your own and you work with DEP. So one of the challenges for us as a board is just sort of making sure that all that stuff happens and that so we don't have direct control over that, but we want oversight in some way. I don't know. I don't know if this is exactly the right place to talk about it, but it probably is. But we want to make sure we have access to all that information, that we have access. We have an environmental engineer who's, at our disposal, and we want to make sure. That is the biggest concern we have heard, bar none, is the environmental concern for that particular parcel.
And we have submitted the environmental reports to the township with our submissions.
Sure.
So we're a preliminary plan also now.
Yep.
So obviously, we'll be coming in with the final plan submission. As we get to that point, we'll be able to provide updated information. Everything will be reviewed to the township's satisfaction. Pete?
Yeah, and just to clarify, all of the environmental items that are identified in those reports, all but the soil remediation have already occurred. The tanks have been removed, the asbestos was removed, the in-ground lifts were removed. All those reports have been provided to the township prior to the demolition of the buildings. The remaining soil that needs to be removed is part and parcel to the MPDS permit. It's largely in the area of the above-ground basin that's going to be constructed, so it's the first phase of the construction that would occur. It will all occur in accordance, as they've said, with all DEP requirements. The final report will be filed with DEP and closed out, and that's the point at which we would receive that Act 2 approval, confirming that it was all handled.
I guess what we're asking is that our environmental engineer has access during that process adequately and completely, not after that process.
Sure, and you guys can handle that in your development agreement as part of the inspections process under the, any sort of development escrow.
Sure, and it will be a condition of this plan, preliminary plan approval says that it is conditioned upon receipt of all outside agency approvals, including DEP. So they won't be able, as I understand the Act 2 process, they need to get the Act 2 approval from DEP before a plan could be recorded.
Not in this instance, because the soil is being removed from the site and disposed of at a treatment facility, that notice of intent to remediate has already been filed. DEP has acknowledged that as the appropriate cleanup measure. That's been provided to the township. Okay. So that's as far as DEP goes, as far as approving stuff ahead of time. They will then review and approve the final report to confirm that all the post-remediation sampling meets their standards. As the soil is removed from the site, they have to test in and around all the areas that they remove it from to ensure that they got it all. When it's removed, they'll provide those test results to DEP. DEP will agree or disagree that they met the standards, and then the final report is accepted.
Okay, so we'll have to perhaps revisit that prior to final plan approval, but we'll certainly make sure there's a mechanism in place so that the township is assured that the property is brought into compliance with Act 2.
Yeah, and we're ultimately agreeable to that, and I'm sure we'll be able to come up with agreeable language as part of final plan approval when we get there.
Sure.
I have a question, but Christian, can you give me a full picture again, or a full site? Can you blow it up a little bit, or is that kind of it? So you have an egress on Park Avenue, one on Park Avenue, one on Germantown Pike, correct? Okay. And it's been through planning modules and a lot of studies. I have one question, and the number of units are, I can't read that, but, what is it?
144
Combined.
combined.
Right. So again, and you do Bowman and traffic studies for the cars and the amount of parking and a number of things. One thing I'm curious about is if you work with our fire department. So if there were a fire, can they get the ladder truck in there? Can they get the pumper in there? And my concern, that's a safety thing. I mean, can a fire truck get in there, even with the parking lot full of cars, in the middle of either unit? And do we have, this is a big question. I mean, we do have the state-of-the-art fire trucks, don't get me wrong. We do have an expensive ladder truck and all that, but can they accommodate any fire from any part of that building on either side or all four sides?
So we are in receipt of the fire marshal's review letter.
Uh-huh.
And in our plan set, we do share toning templates for different vehicles, one of the vehicles being the township's fire vehicle.
Move your mic closer to you, son.
So we are in receipt of the fire marshal's review letter, and in our plan set, we provide turning templates for multiple vehicles, one of those being the township's fire vehicle. So we would show how the township's vehicle could turn in off of Germantown Pike and go through the site.
No, I get that. I can get you can get a truck in there because you're going to get trash trucks in there. You
Right.
can get delivery trucks. I get all that. My concern is, and again, I can't see the middle, but
The middle,
is there a middle driveway? So
we do provide for, there is a mountable curb here that allows for the fire truck to get into the courtyard area.
I mean, just, you see my concern. You've seen many, many fires on the road. I'm just asking a question.
The fire marshal's looked at the plans, he's provided comments, we've addressed prior comments, we'll comply on anything else that's in his letter.
And they're going to provide some form of an approval that
Correct.
if there were a fire, either way, either side, or multiple, that you can have ladder trucks that can,
Yeah, I think that's,
because how many, what's the height and what's the
45 feet's the maximum.
number of floors?
There are 4 floors, total height being 44 feet for Building 2 and 44.44 feet for Building
And
1.
I'm assuming there's a version of escape routes for outside ladders or outside, well, I don't know what they call it, but when you have an apartment complex, you have outside
Correct. I'm not,
escape routes. I don't know how to put it.
right, I'm not an architect, but I do know that you're required to have a certain distance from when you're inside to a fire exit route. So those would be in compliance, which the township would have to review the building during building permit.
So John, this is a question for you. Is there a certain criteria for, this is new to us, so 4-story apartments, the size of this, is there criteria for outside escape ladders or?
Hold on.
Just for a little,
Internal to the building?
just for a little further clarification, so each building is separated into 2 major fire zones.
Hold on a second. What,
Peter Cleland with BET Investments on behalf of the owner. Each building is divided into 2 major fire zones, okay? So it's half of the building and half of the building. Each building has its own fire egress route, and as David mentioned, the distances, et cetera. So they're broken down, they're fully sprinklered, they're in accordance with all NFPA requirements. So yes, great that the fire company can get there and respond, but it's generally going to be in response to a sprinkler already being set off and already working on the fire. So it's not unsprinkled.
Just a question, because it's a mess. I mean, it's a very massive thing.
And then-
Christine, I'd like some input.
Since I'm jumping in here mid-conversation, there was a little bit, I know David touched on where the driveways are located. What he didn't touch on is that there is significant road widening to both Germantown Pike and Park Avenue. So the Park Avenue access provides separate left turn lanes into the site and into the kinetics facility. So that's, I know there was a comment about that left turn in being difficult. It does have its own dedicated left turn in lane on Park Avenue. And we are adding a separate right turn lane on northbound Park Avenue at Germantown Pike. So we're splitting that traffic up from what exists today into separate left, center, and right lanes.
so speaking of roads, one's a county road, one's a state road. A couple of the review letters, it might have been on the Bowman letter, sort of made reference to
The
those.
county has already issued their permit for the site. PennDOT has been resubmitted for hopefully the last time just recently. We were down to one final comment.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually my question. I wanted to know about if there was the road widening on Germantown and Park. So what's the widening going to be on Germantown? Is there?
Chris, can you go up about 5 pages?
I don't know. I think we can point it out here, yeah.
This one works. So this shows Germantown Pike. So currently, this is North Park Avenue, this is Germantown Pike. So you're going towards, I'll say, Methacton High School.
Yes.
You have a right turn lane that allows you to turn. This is Germantown Pike, and this is
You got to
North
talk into
Park
the
Avenue.
microphone. That's why how they can hear you.
This is Germantown Pike, and this is North Park Avenue. If you're on Germantown Pike headed toward Methacton High School, there's currently a right turn lane, a through lane, and a left turn lane. And then drivers can then go straight with one straight through lane. The widening that our client Pete mentioned is that we are adding at the moment, a right turn lane. If, for instance, this parcel next to us were to get developed, and they would go by the county plan, that could then become a through lane that allows for the widening to continue. But that continuation of the widening depends on continual development within the township.
Okay.
And then you go to the next one, please. And then as mentioned by Pete, you're at the intersection of Germantown. This is Germantown, and this is North Park Avenue. Today, if you are headed to the left, there's one lane to get through. And currently today, if you're headed toward the gas station on North Park Avenue, there is a left turn lane and then a through lane, which also serves as the right turn lane. In the proposed condition, that then becomes 4 lanes at the intersection, 1 to the left and 3 to the right. So a dedicated left, 1 to get through, and 1 to make a right. As Pete mentioned, we are creating a left turn lane into our site here, and then the Kinetics does have a left turn lane into their site there.
And new signal equipment at the intersection with new pedestrian crossings, et cetera, et cetera. That's all been through the process with PennDOT as well.
Right, right. You mentioned that American Water would be servicing the site. Has there been discussion, since you mentioned there's going to be sprinklers, that the water pressure would be able to handle a sprinkler system at the apartments?
We've received their information. We've not yet engaged far enough with the architect to determine, I mean, if it's not, then we'll need to add a fire pump, which is something that happens fairly regularly on a lot of projects.
Yeah, okay.
Any more, Rick?
Yeah, can we go through the waivers that you're requesting? John, I want your input on this as well. There's either 4 or 5 waivers. I like to take them one at a time, understand the mechanics of why you're asking. And again, I've read the materials, but I want to hear in your own words kind of why you need to deviate.
Okay.
And why, and John, I want your input as to why we're okay with it.
So one waiver is from section 129-18.h.4. Essentially, that section says, except for a 1-year design storm, basins shall be designed so that they return to normal conditions within approximately 12 hours after the termination of the storm, unless the township determines that downstream conditions may warrant other design criteria for stormwater release. So essentially, once a rain event ends, that the basin is pretty much emptied out within 12 hours.
Right.
For the site, we did infiltration testing, which was determined whether that be because of high groundwater or high bedrock or just no infiltration rates returned, we cannot infiltrate. So DEP has a concept called managed release concept. So if you cannot infiltrate, you release the stormwater slower. So our bases are designed with an underdrain, a 4-inch underdrain that allows for the more frequent storms when you'll see every day or every 2 years, for those to get released slower. So in order for us to do that, we would have to exceed the 12 hours.
So John?
So
the soils in southeastern PA are not conducive to infiltration, so you see these MRC basins all throughout southeastern PA. It's to mimic infiltrating back into the soils because you're releasing, as David said, the stormwater through a slow release. The orifices are small, and so it mimics the volume of infiltration.
So how do you accommodate a more substantial event with a slower, so we've seen, as the running joke is, with the 100-year storm, we seem to get every year now, or every 2 years. How does that impact?
So we are designing in accordance with the township regulations and DEP, and one of those things being, yes, for the higher rate storms, they are able to, so while you have the under drain, the 4-inch pipe, you have bigger pipes that are up higher that allow the water to get out for the higher storms.
So if you have a base, so if I'm going to say it back to you to make sure I understood, there's sort of a 2-tier system in terms of how you're draining out smaller pipe lower. If it gets up to higher levels, the pipes are bigger to allow for a additional runoff more
Correct.
aggressively to account for
And
more water.
we are still required to meet the release rates for the township for the higher storms, whether that
Okay.
be 25, 50, or 100.
Rick, to help you that out, the more frequent storms that happen more often, they're controlled to be released slowly, and then the more storms that happen less often, they actually control the volume, and it meets what the township requirements are.
Okay.
And the waiver is just for the length of time for the basin.
Right, it was the 12 hours I saw that.
Not to change the size of it.
And that's
No.
It's actually bigger as a result.
and it's within DEP's regulations.
Right, and it's still draining off, correct? I mean, the other thing is you don't want standing water. I mean, it's just that you can't do it in 12 hours. That's my understanding, and you're following what DEP is recommending and also staying in sync with our requirements.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. Next one.
Second waiver is from section 129-18.G6. The requirement is slope and fences. The top and bottom edge of slope shall be a minimum of 5 feet from property or right-of-way lines of streets or alleys in order to permit the normal rounding of the edge without encroaching onto the abutting property. As we've noted, we do have improvements that go beyond the right-of-way. So we have improvements on Germantown Avenue, we have improvements on North Park Avenue, and that would necessitate that we go within 5 feet of the property line. So we're requesting that we're able to do that.
It's also along the property boundary.
And along, you're right.
Yeah, so there's a portion of the basin that's closer to the adjacent property line than 5 feet. I would request that the property line be staked in the field to make sure that it doesn't go over that, if the waiver would be granted.
So we're saying yes, but we want to make sure we mark the land properly. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. You don't want to encroach on the adjacent properties. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The next waiver is from section 129-18.H10. The requirement is that all portions of a detention basin bottom shall have a minimum slope of 2%. For portions of basin bottoms with grades less than 2%, the applicant shall provide a landscape design which minimizes maintenance provisions and encourages infiltration. So essentially, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure the township has this requirement as far as having a slope on basins to ensure that the basin does get all the water out and it does dewater. But the fact that we are designing according to MRC, we have an underdrain, which does allow it to drain out. And then also in accordance with the code, we are proposing that the basin be seeded with a metal mix. So our landscape plan, John, you did note that we weren't saying it, but if you look in the planting schedule, it does say that it is to be a metal mix within the basin. So
I think one of the review letters said that you hadn't submitted, like they didn't know what was going to be in it. I'm
Correct.
paraphrasing.
So then, if our landscape plan on the right side has how we're compliant with all of the requirements, and then it says that it's to be seeded with a metal mix.
So the 2% versus 0% slope has been something that's changed in probably the last 10 years. Under drains are proposed for the majority of stormwater management facilities now, and that helps drain the facilities down to zero. So it helps reduce the amount of erosion at the bottom of the basin as well.
So my question, I guess, stems off of, we've seen on a lot of developments that like the landscaping gets handled later, and whatever you're going to do, like street trees, whatever it happens to be. I guess we would want to have input on that, or we would want to make sure before we do any sort of final plan approval that we are fully satisfied with what gets put in
Yeah.
the basin ultimately, what that plan is.
Yeah, so we're okay with meadow mixes that they're proposing. It just wasn't shown on the plan view. That was our comment that Mr. Stewart said that there was actually a specification on it, but it wasn't shown on the bottom of the basin, which they could change, they could fix that plan during final. They could show it on the plan.
Right, they needed to show, okay. So I guess before it comes back for final, that little
Yeah.
deficiency is not going to be deficient on the plan anymore. Is
When
that-
they come back for final approval, the letters will be clean.
Okay. All right.
The next waiver is from section 130-16.C1. Requirement is classification, all streets will be classified as marginal access, rural, residential, cul-de-sac, secondary, and shall be governed as follows. So this is essentially, as we noted for North Park Avenue and for Germantown Pike, and I'll start with North Park Avenue because this is the one that's up now. We are proposing widening up through to the intersection and through this part adjacent to our parcel. But as you can see, the widening begins after you cross essentially the pipe that's underneath of North Park Avenue. So no widening is proposed there, but that widening begins at that point. So as the road gets wider, we will meet the requirement, but the fact is that we need to meet the existing pavement here.
So why do you not want it wide at the, the way I read it was that it was basically, you were fluctuating between like 32 and 60 feet between the two
We're
different.
tapering back to existing as you head south on Park Avenue.
Okay.
So that's the narrowest part. Then the other parts are wider or narrower as appropriate for the lanes that are assigned to them as you go through.
Okay.
You want to show the other one on Germantown Pike too?
So, yeah, Germantown Pike is more consistent. The only section that changes again is when we transition back to existing beyond the driveway headed eastbound.
We need to tie into the existing pavement.
Okay.
And the last waiver is from section 130-18.A, where required sidewalk shall be provided along all streets, excepting where, in the opinion of township supervisors, they are unnecessary for the public safety and convenience. Sidewalk shall be located between the curb and the right-of-way line 5 feet from the curb line. If you go back to the overview for 1 second.
So Germantown Pike, we're complying.
Correct. So Germantown Pike, we are complying, and then the sidewalk we are proposing that comes into the site here. North Park Avenue, as it exists today, is not ADA compliant, so we essentially are pulling the sidewalk into the site so that it can be ADA compliant, because the existing grade on North Park would need to be less than 5 feet.
Are you connecting to that sidewalk at all, or are you, again, I'm just remembering from one of the review letters, talked about, like, I don't want a sidewalk to nowhere,
So we are not extending the sidewalk to nowhere. That was one of the early zoning relief items that
Okay.
was removed, so we're not doing that.
Okay.
We're bringing it from the intersection of Germantown and Park into, around, and throughout the site, and that's where it connects.
It terminates at the driveway.
The original plan went down across the stream into Lower Providence, and that was a sidewalk to nowhere.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Concerns, Christine? Any questions?
No.
So I got a couple more quick ones, guys. Sorry, you'll forgive me. This is just working through my brain slowly. So can you talk maybe a little bit more about the amenities in terms of it, and maybe talk about the living? So one of the concerns with a facility like this is just sort of what comes with it. What might come with it, what might not come with it, and just sort of trying to understand that part of it. And what BET, my understanding is that BET wants to continue to own it, wants to continue to manage it, and that's an entirely different line of business than building it.
Sure, that's a good plan.
Christian, you go 2 plans forward.
One more. So highlighted in red here, Rick, on this sheet on the screen, are the various outdoor amenities for the project, all of which are in the internal courtyards between the buildings. So we have a dog park, tot lot, pool area, pool deck, outdoor seating area, grilling area, bocce courts designed down here, and then sidewalks to connect in and around all those features between the buildings. In addition to that, in this area of Building 2 is where our leasing center and interior amenities will be. We normally have some work-from-home stations, some fitness areas, some TV rooms, not inconsequential in area. They're substantial in area. I want to say in this building, I think we're in the vicinity of like 10,000 square feet of interior amenity space. So yeah, there are plenty of on-site amenities.
And then is BET planning, my understanding was that you're continuing to own the property after building and handle that side of it. Maybe you could speak to that. I know you have other.
Yeah, we own and manage all of our properties. We have our own residential management, our own residential maintenance. There will be on-site people in that regard, as well as our corporate office, which is local.
And just saying, I know you said this in your opening, but I'm going to say it again just to make sure I get it on the record, is that you will fully comply with all of the appropriate review letters, whether it's for Arrow, whether it's from Bowman, whether it was from our fire marshal, whether it was from whatever. There were 6 or 7 of them that were specifically designated in the conditions of approval. You're going to adhere to all of them. I'll ask my professionals. You know, there's always the question of preliminary versus final and what's one versus the other. Maybe you can articulate both for our audience and for our board what we're not approving. Like this is not a shovel goes in the ground tomorrow, and this is simply one step in a process if we decide ultimately to vote on it this evening. Maybe you could give us some context to what conceivably would happen.
Sure. So the preliminary plan essentially provides the developer with the right to develop the project in accordance with what's set forth on the preliminary plan. However, it's still subject to additional review by the township engineer, township traffic engineer, again, fire marshal. Anything that's still outstanding, they will be required to submit an additional final plan set that will then be reviewed by township staff again, and they will need to go back to the Planning Commission for review of that plan, and then ultimately would come back before this board for final plan approval.
And my understanding is that it is a by right plan, so they're not asking for any unique.
That's correct. The zoning for this property is pursuant to the MR overlay district, and that overlay district, they comply with the density for that overlay district, for the height, that there was an amendment to the township zoning ordinance that took place about 5 years ago that increased the density across the township for multi-residential. So they, in fact, comply with that, and there is no zoning relief.
Gotcha. And our planning commission voted to recommend approval.
Yes.
And the Montgomery County Planning Commission also recommended approval, correct? Did I read those documents correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Sorry there, Mr. Chairman, just.
You're covering a lot of bases. Again, I just want Wendy, this is for the public to aware that this started 5 years ago, and that it was always in the multi-residential district, and the density was, it was voted on a board. And give us a little history on that real quick of the curative amendment, the change, the board vote, whatever. Just give me some history, and it was 5 years ago.
Sure. So approximately 5 years ago, probably more, a little bit more than that now, the township took a look at its zoning ordinance, specifically with respect to the township's provision for multifamily dwelling units across the township. And at that time, the ordinance provided for a lower density. The township engaged 3 planners actually to review the zoning ordinance, and it was determined, there had been some inquiries from several developers as to what our ordinance provided for at that time, and staff reviewed it internally along with the planners, and there became a concern that what the ordinance provided 5 years ago would have been subject to challenge. And there was this concern that the township did not adequately provide, did not provide its fair share of multifamily residential dwellings, which is something that's required to be provided under Pennsylvania law. And because of that, the township undertook the curative amendment process. That was a process that took place, and once that occurred, the township was required within 6 months to 6 months to amend its zoning ordinance to bring it into compliance. The township did in fact do that, and that ordinance was adopted in 2021. It's ordinance 2021-285, and that ordinance did not rezone this property, but it did revise the underlying zoning to bring it in compliance with density and height and other requirements, so that staff and the township planners that were engaged felt comfortable that the township at that point would provide for its fair share of multifamily housing. And again, that was done back, it was adopted actually almost 5 years ago to the day. It was adopted on June 16th, 2021.
Okay, I thought the date was January 21. For some reason, that
I
date
think
sticks in my
maybe
head.
January was when
I mean, not January, June 21, I believe, of 21. Somehow that date sticks in my head.
Well, actually, I have the ordinance in front of me.
I think that's when it was approved. And again, it was passed by a prior board. So that's where we are at today. Again, everything's in compliance according to John. Rick, you've pretty much identified all the waivers.
Yep.
Christine, you have any
Can I
questions?
make a recommendation real quick? Do you guys have the architectural drawings, just so that everybody knows what it looks like before?
So this would be building 1.
This is the southern building, further away from Germantown Pike, the courtyard side and the rear side. You can keep scrolling, Christian. These are the left and right sides of that same building. So the left elevation at the bottom of the page would be the side that's facing Park Avenue, and the right side would face to the east at the top. Very similar for building 1. The bottom of the page is the interior courtyard face, and the top of the page is the side that would face Germantown Pike. And then again, the 2 sides, the top of the page being the side at Park Avenue, and the bottom of the page being the side facing to the east. Mix of materials to break up the facade into, smaller looking pieces, keep it interesting, nice window lines. Each building does have a rooftop terrace, as you can kind of see on that lower left image, to take advantage of the views out over Fairview Village, or from Fairview Village, I should say, hence the name. And that's pretty much it.
Any more questions?
No, sir.
Christine?
No, I don't have any.
Wendy, are we good? John?
That's all I have.
We've covered everything? So I'm going to entertain a motion for a preliminary land development approval for City View. Rick? Oh, we have a question? Sure. Sure. Do you want to make the motion?
So the mechanics of it would be there will be a motion and a second, and then public comment. So then that's procedurally how that will happen, and then you'll all have an opportunity.
Just give us 1 minute to do it. So Rick, I'll entertain the,
Right, so I'll make a motion that we approve, a motion to approve Resolution 2026-11, which is preliminary land development approval for City View Apartments.
I second.
any public comment?
Okay, so guys, I'm going to ask you if you could vacate that area. So we'll ask of you and anybody who wishes to make public comment when you come up, if you just state your name. You can just say from Worcester. If you want to say what your address is, that's fine, but just so we make sure we get all the information correctly, and then you can share your comments with the board.
And sign in, please.
Yeah.
My name is Angela Gertie. I live on Windy Hill Road, and they're building those big mansions behind us that don't fit the character of the community as. But that was my first comment, and that's a suggestion that I had brought up at the last meeting we had, was why do they have to build these apartments? Why don't they build townhouses? That would fit more into the community, the character of the community. But we have to look at these monstrosities. And my biggest concern, and I'm sure other people too, light pollution, sound pollution. Light pollution, my house, we don't have any streetlights. I can see, I've seen the Milky Way from my property. I've seen planets from my property. Now, once they put up this, whatever the lights they do on the buildings, I'm gonna have to find another place to go where I used to see in my backyard. Do I need to put a second curtain on my window to keep the light out because of all the light pollution that's gonna be coming? And noise pollution, there's gonna be more noise because of cars and stuff and blah, blah, blah. Can we go back to that one picture where you have the landscaping? I have a question. Because I'm not sure you covered it, but, because someone brought it up. That's good. All right, to the left, is that land sloping down or is that gonna be flat? Because my concern is the homes that are abutting up to the property line, are they gonna get flooded out every time there's a storm? Because that wouldn't be very nice. Because that's another concern is to the neighbors. Even though they're lower providence, they're still our neighbors. So, but like I said, my biggest concern, why can't they build townhouses instead of big apartments? And light pollution and noise pollution, those are like big. I think on a lot of other people's minds. Okay, and you did talk about the cleanup of the gas station, but you didn't say gas station.
Well, environmentals, and again, John's gonna,
So those are, like I said, those are the biggest concerns. The design, in apartments, townhouses, or apartments. Light pollution, noise pollution, and like I said, the water running off to our neighbors.
that part's always addressed. That part will always be addressed, and John will verify that that'll be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Stuart Roth.
Sign in, please. Test.
My name is Stuart Roth. I live in Heritage Village, and in fact, one of the houses that'll be adjacent to this new property. So my two concerns, one is the drainage again, which was already
Increased?
So if they're requesting a waiver for the drainage pattern of the basin, I just want to make sure that it is going to address the amount of water that comes through. Because I know that rock surface that it hits must be hard, and it runs literally out of the side of the top of my property, and I can see it actually running out at certain places. So that's the one concern. The other concern is just a question about what type of fence or tree line will be on the border with Heritage Village. So in other words, will I be looking up into those 4 stories of apartments, or will there be something like trees planted there or a berm or something like that? I don't know if there's an answer to that right now, but those are just my concerns.
It's showing a lot of trees along that, I'm going to say that lower line. I believe that you're,
Do you want, so Pete, do you want to go over to that mic over there? If it's either way, if it's an answer that you can provide on that. You can make some comment at the end? That'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you, those are my own.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. John, come forward.
My interest in the monstrosities taking place is probably more for the township, but the sewer plant at East Mount Kirk, not all that big. And the excess, you know, what is excess from the sewer? Goes into the stream, crosses East Mount Kirk, it's into a pond. So if you look at my iPad, it's a black pond. It's running into, from there, it runs through more cistern. And into Lower Providence, where I started, I have a 3-acre property. Wood, and most of it is woods. If that stream travels through, it's a long distance, diagonal from my property. In that, down there is a net open area maintained in my property. Boy Scouts use it, churches use it, used for a lot. Kids playing in that stream. That stream, when I moved in that farm, hadn't been banking about that high. Now, I realize storms over the years have done a lot. It is now this high. It's really that much. The concern is the size of that, the size of that. And then the one on this side of that side of the German complex, they want to do, they're pumping it up there too. So I am concerned, Grant, when I look at that black pond, it's right over the side of Mount Kirk, it's not working now. So that's my.
Okay. Thank you, John.
thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public comment?
One in the back there, and then.
Come on up, Bert. Come.
I see there's an agenda item, 2 on there, I want to be jumping about. But is there some explanation how sewage is going to be handled? You talk about it's being serviced by Borough
Now, Kirk. John?
So there's a difference between the water company and the sanitary sewage treatment. The sewage treatment is handled by Worcester Township. It's going to, the BET project will be served by gravity to the Heritage Creek pump station and pumped into the Burke wastewater treatment plant. As part of that plant, there was extra capacity that was taken into account when it was designed. So the two projects that are on the additional agenda items, the plant has capacity for treatment of those additional flows. The plant is permitted to allow a certain discharge of water to the stream, so that's not going to increase with the improvements or the additional flow that's coming here. Additionally, the wastewater treatment water that comes out of the plant gets tested frequently to make sure that it meets the DEP requirements.
The other thing I would say about that, though, is I know that there has been proposal put in front of the board. I think Andy did that, to have studies of the current sewage treatment plant capacities and the like. Do we know whether this fits it now, based upon, I mean, those studies that have been done yet?
The studies that we proposed to the board, we're still working through some additional options, but those studies are designed as more of a holistic review of our existing, less capacity and more just to make sure that the proper long-term maintenance and everything is planned correctly. So we're not, those studies wouldn't be analyzing any capacity of the stormwater plant or of the sanitary plants, rather analyzing the long-term condition and maintenance of the facilities. No, sir, it wouldn't come into play there.
Correct. Thank you, Ed.
In listening to the stormwater, the first waiver about stormwater release, I heard stormwater release mentioned several times. What I didn't hear is where is it going? Is it being released to the sewage system? Is it being released to the local creek? Where does the stormwater go? Whether it's 12 hours or 15 hours or whatever it takes for the stormwater to drain down. Where is it going?
So stormwater is not allowed to go in the sanitary sewer. It has to discharge to the nearest stream.
Okay, and if it's discharging to the nearest stream, and on the other side of that stream are the homes in Lower Providence, or further down the stream, homes in East North, how do we ensure that those folks aren't being flooded out?
So there's a requirement for the stormwater ordinance that you can't make conditions any worse than currently exist. And the ordinances in Worcester actually improve that because you have to reduce the peak flows more than what pre-development is.
All right, as long as it's been thought through and you have the answers for it. One other thing that came up in the vision of the amenities that were on there, there was reference to a grilling area. And has the fire department been made aware that not just the buildings themselves, but there's a plan for a grilling area in close proximity to a 4-story building? I've seen a number of developments, many places put regulations, and they won't, even in townhomes developments, they don't allow people to have grills on patios and things. So it struck me as unusual to have an amenity, a grilling area, in the location that we saw it there. And the third comment that I wanted to make, I heard that as a plus, there would be no exterior dumpsters, which means the dumpsters are going to be in the buildings. And when I think of dumpsters and the odor that's typically associated with them, particularly at this time of year, the potential for rats and other vermin to be there, I just question the wisdom of having garbage disposal within a building. So just something to think about.
You can sit down and sign in and provide your name and. Start over. That's all right. State your name, start over.
My name is Greg Deach. I live on Middle Road.
Yep.
See the green light?
Oh, now it's on. Hello. Name, bloody hell. Name is Greg Dragic. I live on Windy Hill Road. I have a few questions pertaining to, well, a lot of things. So for the apartment buildings themselves, how many, you say that they're family units? Or are they just for one person? So roughly a family or not quite? Not generally. Okay, that takes out that question. I was gonna ask how many parking places per unit for two, all right. Question is more for you guys. Based on however units, based on however many units are needed for the apartment that is created, would we have to fund a new police station to handle it? Because I know that the state police can only handle so much before it gets turned over and we have to start funding our own.
That's a good question. Wendy, could you, or Dan, could you,
So generally, there is no real hard cutoff on where state police funding or where state police coverage kind of begins and ends. There's a neighboring township where I used to work that had 40,000 people that was still with state police coverage. So there really is no formula on when we would have to go up. We've hit X line. Now we have to consider a local police force.
So there was a mention for the ways in and out of the lot. Is that the proper word? You were talking about adding lights for the traffic. Is that going to only affect the people getting out of the lots or the people for the traffic itself going into the areas?
you're talking about parking lot lights? Is that what
Are they parking lot lights or are they lights to get off of the actual road and into turning left and turning right, in and out?
The only traffic signals they're proposing are replacements to the signals at the intersection. They're not adding new traffic signals anywhere.
Okay,
Thank you, Dan.
test that out. For the current amount of animals that are currently living there simply because they haven't started any construction, once they do start doing the construction, where are all the animals gonna go? Are they gonna go down into the neighbors that live further down the hill, I guess is the term?
That one I don't have an idea on, like, where they're gonna go. I don't know.
Okay.
They're gonna move, I'm sure.
And then, definitely.
So Pete, can they get a good rate on 1- and 2-bedroom places for the existing animals? No. Okay.
Oh, gee.
One last question based off of far too much time gaming. Security-wise in the parking lots, what's going to stop people from trying to less than savory access the cars that are there? Carjacking, you know, access to any types of crime or drugs and whatnots. What's to stop anyone from attempting to illegally get into the cars that are in the parking lots, security-wise, cameras, lights, any type of crime or drugs that might happen in the area? What's to stop that from, or reduce it from happening? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Come on up.
Is this on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Bill Moran. I live in Worcester. I have a couple concerns about driving past that treatment plant on Mount Kirk Avenue on a Friday night. I don't know if you ever done that, but it smells pretty bad. Anybody noticed that besides me? First time you're here. It seems like it might need to be enlarged. Is there any provisions for that? That's the first question. And the second question I have is I've plowed Germantown Pike not too many times recently, but this year we had an exceptional snowfall. And I'm wondering what they're going to do in that high-density area with all, 200 cars parked in that parking lot, what they're going to do, or where, is there anything to push that snow somewhere there, or are they going to have to haul it off-site? You know, how are they going to manage having that high of a density of cars in that area and being able to facilitate removing the snow and keeping the people mobile? Or, for that matter, if they do have a problem, how are they going to access an emergency? Like a fire or an ambulance? And I think that could be a problem with that area. But I don't know. They might have an idea. But that septic problem, it's just not John with his erosion. It's quite an aroma there.
Dan, you want to talk to the treatment facility?
I have smelled it. I do know what you're talking about.
Oh, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
I'm aware.
Okay. What's being done about that anyway?
Generally, the system is designed in a way where there's significant sludge pumping that goes on. You know, use your imagination on what the sludge is, but it's sludge pumping where they pump it out of the system. When that happens, that's generally the smell. It's generally done on a weekly basis on a Friday afternoon, and that is unfortunately part of the pumping process. You're gonna smell it there for a time period.
I thought that was an aerobic thing and it's supposed to get rid of the sludge.
The aerobic part of it makes it less and breaks it down, but ultimately it does have to go somewhere, and it goes off-site through licensed pumpers.
Is that going to be addressed, or is it just going to keep on getting worse?
Well, it shouldn't get worse. It shouldn't get
140
worse.
more contestants.
But the design of that specific type of sewage treatment plant is that is how it kind of operates. There's pumping that's done, and with the pumping comes that side effect, unfortunately.
Maybe it's time for an upgrade, eh?
I think an upgrade of that type, and John, you probably can know a little bit more on this, but I think rather than an upgrade would have to be essentially a brand new plant using different technology. I mean, is that sort of kind of right? I know enough to be dangerous, but it's not my specialty.
Now, is that something the township would be expected to pay for, or somebody that wants to throw additional units into that treatment plant?
So the applicants are actually doing upgrades to the plant and aeration to allow their connections. They got a correction action plan from DEP. They are adding aerators to the plant as part of their project. They won't be able to make connection to that until that's done. So with that being said, maybe that will help reduce that smell when that's done.
I don't know how those people live there.
Yeah. I haven't heard, this is the first I'm hearing anything. from
Oh,
anybody.
stop it.
No, it's.
The manager
honestly.
hears it.
Yeah, I know, but I have, nobody said anything to me. I'm not the operator of the plant either.
I got you.
This is the first time I'm hearing anything.
So ultimately, as part of our study that the previous resident had mentioned, you know, that's certainly something we could see if there's some sort of thing that we should be addressing on the township side. If that's, if it's an out of the ordinary level, I don't know exactly what out of the ordinary is in that case because it's more of a technical thing, but we certainly, as part of our holistic look at our septic or at our sewage system, we certainly would bring that up and have the experts analyze it and see if there's something we should be doing as a township to address that issue. I guess it's the best way I can say it.
I guess that's about it. I can't think of anything else to complain about. I can't think of anything else to complain about. Okay, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Lake. I live on Griffith Road, so right there, so a stone's throw from the new development. I have to admit, I'm kind of new to all this. This is really my first time coming here and seeing the proposal. And I listened carefully, and I had just a few questions after you went through the presentation. One had to do with the sidewalk, and having kids that grew up right around the corner, I always thought it'd be kind of nice to be able to let them walk down the road, just to either get to like the Acme or like to the stores down there. And right now that's impossible. And from listening to the proposal, it seems like a sidewalk would be coming in and going alongside maybe of the parking lot, but then not going anywhere out and down south down the road. I just wanted to clarify if that was the intention, and if it was, if there'd be any way to connect. I know further down the road there's a sidewalk where like maybe a couple lots down, and if there were the ability to put a sidewalk that continued from Fairview Village down all the way down the road, that would be just a nice thing for, my kids are grown, but for the next generation of kids that may want to do that. So that's one question. The other was, we talked a lot here, or I heard here a lot about the changes to the road on this side of Germantown and then on the south side of Park, but I didn't hear any mention of any changes to the north side of Valley Forge Road coming right up along here that's always jammed up all evening, and then also like along the other side of Germantown Pike coming, like let's say from the high school towards this way. So if I'm doing the math and I've got 144 units and 280 some cars, I imagine at about 5 o'clock, a quarter of them are going to be coming down this way, a quarter of them this way, and maybe most of them coming up the road. But already we've got a pretty bad traffic problem coming south. I happen to drive south down from like the Lansdale area, and it's always jammed up all the way up, like up to Griffith Road here. And it's a pretty obvious problem. There's nowhere for the cars that are trying to get to Germantown to make a left or to get to make a right. There's just no lane. There's only a single lane, as everyone who lives here knows, coming all the way down that strip. And so if you're going left or right, you've got to sit waiting behind everyone that's going straight. So when I heard about this proposal, I just assumed that any normal person would be making changes to the road up here along Padrino's and this shopping center, which would be the most important, and then maybe even on the stretch going towards the high school coming back this way. But I didn't hear anything about that tonight. So to me, that just seems moronic when you've got all that additional number of cars that are going to be, these people have to work somewhere, right? They're renting, which wasn't my ideal scenario too. I kind of agree with you that townhouses would have been a nice solution, but I don't have any say over that. But now hearing that it's going to be, a couple hundred rental units, they're going to be, younger people that are all going to be working in either King of Prussia or up in Lansdale or down towards, Norristown that way. And in the morning and then the evening, they're all going to be having to get back in here. Well, we're just going to be compounding that huge problem. I think you've got to extend lanes going up along Padrino's somehow to just make it so that we're not backed up all the way up to that other neighborhood that's up there where it's a problem too, where the people are trying to get out to, come from whatever that road is, quarter mile up the road. So, I think that's all I had for questions.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
All right, so I took what I think are pretty good notes here. Question about lights, for starters. Topographically, the portion of our site that's closest to the intersection, Building 2, the parking lot surrounding it, is graded in such a manner that it's going to sit down from the intersection of Germantown Pike and Park Avenue about 13 feet. At the first floor level, we don't do lights on our buildings. There are parking lot lights. Those parking lot lights are limited to 12 feet in height. So really, any and all of the light is going to be below the roadway level. And you asked a question about how the site grades down. The site has a significant slope away from the intersection at the top of the hill down to the back towards Providence Crossing, as well as towards the drainage channel at the southwestern corner of the site, which we'll get to a little bit later in relation to the stormwater question. Noise, I frankly don't know what noise would be expected to be generated from this. You mentioned vehicles. I would think that the vehicles that are on the road are certainly creating more operating noise driving up the hill on Germantown Pike and up the hill on Park Avenue than any of the cars traversing around the parking lot on the site, which are certainly further away and, if anything, masked by the noise on the roads that exists. Stormwater management came up a couple of times. The site, can I have a laser? This was asked in a couple of different contexts. As far as Heritage Village, the site as it exists today has zero stormwater management whatsoever. It all runs off. It was largely either paved or impervious surfaces from years of compaction of use in its prior use. So you are getting a significant amount of runoff from the site as it exists today. As John mentioned, we are required not only to control it to what exists today, but to better than that standard, not only by the township, but also by Conservation District. So we will be reducing the rate of runoff from the site, and we will be controlling the volume of runoff from the site, as David had mentioned with our slow release basin. So David had mentioned we have 2 underground detention basins underneath this portion of the parking lot here, and we have a large surface basin at this part of the property here. So the runoff that's getting to Heritage Village today from basically this whole part of the site is cut off by the curb line and inlets that are going to be constructed along this part of the property, controlled within our detention basin, and discharged to the stream that exists here at the southwestern edge of the site. So you should see, I would think, a dramatic reduction to the Heritage Village side of the site. And just generally, we are, as I mentioned, reducing the peak runoff from the site. There was also a question about landscaping and buffering. So we have a 75-foot wide landscape buffer between us and Heritage Village. We also have 75-foot buffers around both street frontages of the site, and even more than that to the Providence Crossing side. I don't have a dimension on that, but I'm going to say it's 150 to 200 feet towards that side, with both screening and softening level of landscaping plantings on this eastern side. Sanitary sewer came up in a couple of different contexts, as was mentioned. This will feed by gravity to the pumping station that the township operates in Heritage Village and go to the Berwick treatment plant. As also mentioned, we are responsible for blower upgrades at the treatment plant to increase the organic treatment capacity at the Berwick treatment plant. That work has already been through most of the approval process and is the very first thing that we have to do before we can proceed with any of this other work. That is expected to happen, I think, in very short order. I think provided that the planning modules are approved later on the agenda, that's the very next step, is that we engage that work with a contractor to have that work done at the treatment plant. Direction to stormwater grilling area location, I think it's actually wholly appropriate that we have an outdoor grilling station. People like to grill food from time to time. We provide it in a controlled manner, not adjacent to the building, but within the courtyard, away from the building. We do not allow residents to have grills or outdoor grills on their decks or with relation to their units, so we are very much aware of the concerns over grills, which is why we provide them. They're built in, they're not movable, and it's a very controlled environment. Interior trash considerations, I totally agree that trash enclosures sitting out in the hot heat of the summer become stinky, rat-infested nightmares. That's actually part of the reason that we manage our trash inside of the building. It's climate controlled. It's much more under our direct purview. It eliminates neighborhood people coming and dumping stuff in our trash containers unexpectedly, overfilling them. We don't know that they're filled because it's out of our ordinary course. We're able to keep a much better handle on the trash management in that manner. Security concerns, our buildings are all card secured for the residents, and we do provide a certain level of security cameras throughout the facility. Certainly can't say that we can hit every corner between every car, but we do our best. Snow management was a question. We have this hard edge of the parking lot here by the detention basin, so if we have a year like we had this year, we'll be able to move snow down this access way that we have a little access way for maintenance of the basin right here. So if it really comes to it, we can get snow into the basin. Otherwise, we're generally able to store them, in the parking lots. There's a question about the amount of parking that was provided. We are providing 2 per unit. It's our experience, and our traffic engineer can certainly talk to this. In the industry, you really only need like 1.5 to 1.6 parking spaces per unit for this type of facility. So we have excess parking on site already, in our opinion. And last question was about sidewalk and extending it further south along Park Avenue. Unfortunately, sidewalk is not a permitted use in the floodplain conservation district under the township ordinance as it exists today. We had previously received relief for that, which was then decided by the zoning board not to extend that relief, so we can no longer provide that sidewalk because we don't have the zoning relief for it. If the township chooses to amend their basic ordinance to allow a sidewalk in the floodplain conservation district, it could be installed at a later time. But as it stands right now, we can't do it. I think I got everything. Did I miss anything? Yeah, it's a management thing. We handle it at all of our other properties, and it's just something you got to work through, just like any other large development. Well, it's not going to move out onto the roads or across elsewhere into the township. We have to manage it on site, and fortunately, we have an area that we can do it. Yes, it's a very complex process in a project like this. It costs a lot of money. And I guess there was a question about off-site traffic improvements. I mean, we are providing the traffic improvements that are attributable to the traffic that's going to be added to the roadways from our development. We're providing all of the frontage improvements that are required under the ordinance, and we are also paying a traffic impact fee, which will facilitate the township in advancing other projects throughout the township to deal with larger traffic concerns that are not a direct result of this project. The actual, from the time we put a shovel in the ground to the time that people are occupying the buildings is probably closer to 2 years. No. We are widening, we're widening towards our side of the road. We're not moving the other side. Yes.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
You done? John, you all right with this? Preliminary, you're fine? All the bases?
Preliminary is fine.
Christine?
No, as long as Wendy and John have looked at everything and,
Double time.
yeah.
Rick, want to make a motion?
I made the motion. We had a
Forget
second.
now, it's been a while.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. That's right. It's been moved and seconded.
Did you second it? I forget.
I did.
That was a while ago.
We then had our public comment.
We've had our public comment, so it's been motioned and seconded. Do we have a vote? All approved?
Aye.
Aye, so approved. Preliminary is granted.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if individuals, if some of you want to leave, that's certainly fine. If you came for this particular thing, we can take a minute or two if you want to clear out. Chris, I wanted to make a couple comments about, you mentioned the roadways. Typically, when you have a development, and this is not unique to this development, road improvements, if you can tie them to the development, are always the best way to do that if you can. But when you talk about this particular road, there's a long-term plan that Lou's aware of, Christine, I'm not sure if you are, of Valley Forge Road is a state road, but ultimately trying to fix some of the bottlenecks on that road is a different sort of long-term infrastructure project to do things of that nature, where you talk about turn lanes at every intersection and those sorts of things. They don't typically get looped into, as the applicant was saying, they are responsible kind of for their piece of that. The engineer predicts how many trips. It's actually the traffic engineer will say, we anticipate a certain number of trips because of that, and they have to account for those. But our bigger challenge is, as everybody is aware, is the cross-through traffic that we get on both sides of the township going north and south. It's in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000 cars per day in both directions, and there just isn't enough road to do that. And it's not a unique problem to Worcester, but we're kind of the cog between a lot of travel universes. So it doesn't necessarily get this project, but ultimately it's, we're aware of the issue. There's not a simple, easy fix, and it's an expensive fix on top of that. So I didn't want you to discount that. Sure. I hear you. It's a fair point. It's always a fair concern in terms of any time. Folks will remember a few years ago, there was conversations about a Wawa at the intersection on the other side of the township. And that's still, there's commercial land there, and that's not, that's a reality that could happen. There's nothing in front of us at all as a board, but it's commercial property that can be developed. And that's always a concern. And you'd always look to have that encompass road improvement for ingress and egress. It is a concern. It's a valid concern. I don't have any perfect answer for it other than we try to hit them every time they come in front of us if we can.
Okay. move on. So now we have the discussion. Go ahead. Rick, you want to do the resolution 2026-12?
Right, so it's going to be, so Resolution 2026-12 is an approval of the City View Apartments Sewage Planning Module. Ed, you had asked about this sort of in your previous question. So John, maybe you can talk through what that process is, and then we can go from there.
Yes, so DEP requires approval by the municipality to allow revisions to their Act 537 plan. The Act 537 plan lays out areas of the township that has public sewer. As part of that plan, DEP requires the planning module to be approved by the township and then submitted to DEP for review and approval.
So procedurally, it's a step we have to take, ultimately. They've got to go in front of DEP to add to your sort of question, to sort of confirm, or Bill, to some degree, your question, sort of confirm that what they're going to do is going to work the way it's intended, that there is capacity to do the things they want to do, or in some cases, they have to do some improvements to the facility in order to accommodate that. But they've got to, that's an approval that comes from DEP, not from the township directly, but we have to approve them to be able to send that, if I remember, sort of understand that correctly.
It's actually the township submitting it on behalf of the applicant.
On behalf of the applicant.
Because it is a township's 537 plan that's being amended.
Okay, and folks, just so, a 537 plan is ultimately, we have to document all the sort of sewer, wastewater, sort of requirements of the township. We have a plan that says this is how much sewer we think we're gonna have, this is how much capacity we have and need, and anytime a development takes place, you typically have to amend it to amend that plan to make sure you're accounting for all of the treatment that needs to happen around that.
Correct, all the flows.
I'm paraphrasing, John,
Yeah,
so correct me.
all the flows that are generated by the new development.
Questions down the line? I've been through a few of these.
This is John's neighborhood, but yeah, go ahead. I'm good.
Anything, Christine?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So then I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 2026-12, which is an approval of the City View Apartments Sewage Planning Module.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any additional comment on the sewer module? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
So the next one up, John, I'm going to ask you to re-articulate a little bit, but this is a similar situation where we have Resolution 2026-09, which is an approval of the Trooper Ridge Sewer Planning Module, which is the townhouse development that's further down the road at the intersection of Trooper and Germantown.
Yep, so the township granted preliminary approval for the Trooper Ridge subdivision, the townhome development. They're working through their final plan approval. As part of that final plan approval, they will need submission of the planning module as well to DEP. Same process. The townships submits the paperwork to DEP, and DEP reviews it, comes back with any comments, and ultimately approves the planning module for the to allow the development to make a connection to the township's treatment plant.
Anything else?
It's the same as before.
Same as
now.
before, yes, sir. Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-09, which would be an approval for the Trooper Ridge Sewage Planning Module.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any additional public comment on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, next item up on our agenda is going to be an authorization for advertisement for Ordinance 2026-304, which is a stormwater ordinance update. So, Dan, John, this is you?
Yeah, I can handle this one.
Or
do you want to start?
I can kind of start.
Okay.
And then John can get into the technical stuff. So generally, and again, if I put my foot in my mouth, John, make sure you stop me. But generally, the stormwater updates are coming generally from language around that DEP is giving us direct from the state. If you look at stormwater ordinances all through Montgomery County and really the state of Pennsylvania, you'll notice that they're almost identical. That's not coincidental. That is because most of this is coming down from the agency that's really putting these rules into place. This one is to address some of the permitting around the MS4 process. And John, if you want to kind of get a little bit about the specifics of that part.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about the MS4 program lately. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. The township is required to get a permit. As part of that permit, they are required to reduce sediment and nutrient loads to streams. As part of that, DEP is requiring that we update the stormwater management ordinance with 2 brief revisions to 2 sections. The first one is a modification of when any kind of deviations from the stormwater ordinance can be handled. And the other one is which discharges may be allowed under the township's MPDS permit. They're minor in nature. It's just more to get in line with the permit renewal that will be happening in a few years. It's required to be completed by September of this year. The ordinance needs to be revised by September of this year as per the MS4 requirements.
So what was the deadline, John? September?
Yeah, September.
So I'm concerned, and this came up in the planning joint session, I'm concerned that our planning commission didn't see it, even though I understand what you're saying, but procedurally, part of the cadence of any ordinance, I understand that it's not huge changes and things of that nature, but it is an ordinance change, it is a zoning change. At a minimum, that there should have been, then there still is technically time to have, have that run through there, I think, but I guess I don't know.
So to clarify, it's not a zoning change, it's a stormwater management ordinance. So
Okay,
there's
well-
a difference, yeah. It's a slight difference, but it is a difference. Yeah, if the board wishes, we could provide it to the planning commission, the revisions, and they could take a look at it the next PC meeting.
Again,
I agree. Send it.
we have a couple months, not perfect, I understand that, but at a minimum, I'd like them to have the opportunity to hear this is what we changed, or why we changed it, or why we need to change it, so that they can at least understand that from their perspective. I mean, beyond zoning, stormwater, and certainly it came up tonight many times, stormwater is one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get in this board all the time. Water flows differently today than it did 10 years ago. More water, more everything. It's an issue, and I don't think it's, again, I think it's a step we can take.
Yes, I agree.
Can I ask just for just context, like, is this something that has gone to the planning commission in the past? Like, I mean, this can't be the first time that the stormwater ordinance has been updated, or, yeah, so.
Everybody handles it differently. I would imagine that when the rewrite of the stormwater management ordinance would have went in front of the planning commission when it happened, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
Unfortunately, I wasn't here.
So I can speak to that. So
I
there was
certainly wasn't either,
sort of a massive stormwater,
Right.
60 or 80 pages that absolutely went through the planning commission at that time,
Okay.
just because it was sort of it was a newer thing, trying to get, but I think this is probably the first revision that we've had on it since then.
And I would like to add, it's more administrative than it is technical. So
I hear you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think procedurally, it's a step we should be in the habit of taking and take, unless there's, again, some massive argument why we can't.
No, I agree as well.
We're going to table it, send it to planning.
With full understanding from them that we need to adopt by September.
Yep.
So that's the practical reality of it.
Number 6, discussion motion on resolution to authorize application for Growing Greener grant.
Sure. So I'll handle that one. So the Growing Greener grant program is something you may remember from a few years back. There's a segment of the Zacharias Creek that is part of our membership in the Skippack Watershed Alliance with a number of other surrounding townships. we were just speaking about MS4 requirements. What that is we're required to mitigate some of the sediment runoff into the local waterways by joining a coalition of other, basically, townships. The good news is when they do a project that's kind of approved, we get some credit for it. When we do a project that we're approved for, they get some credit for it, and we all share the costs. So it's cheaper and easier for us to meet our MS4 requirements. So this Growing Greener grant we got a few years back was for the design of a stream bed restoration on a little bit over 1,100 square foot segment of the Zacharias Creek. We're working through that, coming to the end of that design phase. So this grant that we would apply for here would then allow us to take that design and actually do the work. The match on this grant program is very attractive. It's only a 5% match. So it's a pretty competitive grant program, but we've gotten some good luck since we're a member of a alliance consortium type organization. We've gotten some good responses on our grant applications, and I'm confident we'll be able to construct this with this grant.
We are asking for $500,000 to cover a portion of the estimated construction costs, so I just want the board to be aware of that. That's the maximum request allowed.
Is this tied in at all, is this completely separate project from the Zacharias Trail?
Correct.
It's completely separate.
So this is stream bank restoration, yeah. Yes, this is stream bank restoration. The trail is something that's completely different.
Okay.
We're still working on that.
Yeah, I know. I look at your report every month and I'm like, oh, there's nothing new.
Well, there's things that are new. It's just very slow.
Yeah, gotcha. But this is a separate project gotcha. Thank you.
I'm good. You want to make a motion?
Good, make a motion.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2026-14, which would be authorize the application to the Growing Greener Grant Program for construction of the Zacharias Creek Stream Bed Restoration Project.
I second that.
Motion and a second. Any public comment on this? Go on, Bob.
Bob Andor, Worcester. I couldn't find anything on where this exactly is. John, can you articulate that?
It's off of Skipback Pike between Green Hill Road. It's along the Zacharias Creek Trail.
That's fine. So my
Yeah.
question is directly related to that, and I'm trying to understand. Right off of Hollow Road in the Zacharias Creek, there has been a tremendous, over the years,
It's between Hollow Road and Green Hill.
if it's closest to Hollow Road where there's a tremendous amount of debris that is in
Dam
there.
that's in there that we're replacing. We're removing that. It's just like almost,
It's dammed up.
yeah, a large tree. That's a portion of what we're proposing, along with stream bank stabilization. So the stream bank's cut back and it's not eroding.
It's now expanded dramatically because
Yep.
of all of those trees. So
Yep.
it would be helpful, I mean, I'm happy to ask the question, but it would be helpful when you have something like this, if you can articulate it a little bit more.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Any other public comment? Okay, motion second and all approved?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Other business? Any board member have any other business?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing none. Public comment for the final time. Any public comment on anything for the evening?
It was unrelated, so I didn't want to take that time at the same time. So you've tabled the motion on stormwater management. I understand from John that it's a minor modification to that. So I'll make the recommendation right now so that we don't waste any additional time that, and I say that because I am on the Planning Commission, that my requests typically always follow that. If you could redline the existing ordinance to modify and show us what those changes are, that will help us, especially with an 80-page ordinance, on what we need to focus on, rather than reading 80 pages to find 2 lines that need to be changed, and/or having an executive summary that accomplish a summary of what we're looking at. That will help to expedite the process for us. Thank you, and I appreciate, Rick, you stepping up and offering the recommendation that go to planning. Thank you.
So just the 2 sheets, the 2 pages that are going to be revised, would that be sufficient? That would be redlined?
If you could focus on that, if it can be finalized in that way, then that would be tremendously helpful.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking at something that's 80 pages. I didn't read it, and I'm kind of saying, how do I, where do I focus on it?
Yeah.
If it's really that simple, I don't think it will take a lot for us to kind of look at it and say, good to go.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. No, I hear you.
That makes sense.
Any more public comment?
We got Amy over here, I think. We got Ed and then Amy.
Ed Moore, Worcester. This is really more of a comment, and it's just sort of a lot of discussion tonight sort of stimulated this thought. There was a lot of talk about some of the capacities for the sewers and all that other kind of stuff, and there's development on Trooper Road, and there's the City View project and the like. As you guys are well aware, we take advantage of a lot of volunteer services like the fire company. As population growth, as buildings increase, are we communicating with, I think some of the ambulance services might be volunteer too. Are we, would like to say that we try and keep in mind the impact of 144 units going into not just is the ladder going to reach the roof, but do we have enough people to support an emergency at that facility, particularly, again, in a volunteer organization? Because I'm sorry these guys left, because I'm sure they don't deal with, communities that have a lot of volunteer services like we do. So just something I think that you guys should, quiz or put into the, the calculus of how we come up with an approval, or does a development take that into account?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, Amy Smith, Hollow Road. Just wanted to hit on a couple things from this evening, but before I do that, first I want to say thank you again for the concert in the park next week. I know there's a lot of people really excited about it, hoping we get really good turnout, but I think the township putting some time and energy into community-based programming is going to pay off. I know a lot of us go out of town to attend events in other municipalities. I think once we get this going, we're going to see some people coming in here too, and we'll get some bragging rights. So I wanted to say thank you for that first and foremost before anything else. Secondly, I want to echo Mr. Moore's comment about volunteerism in the municipality, and and some of the things I was thinking about just about planning in general here. As we grow, as the population changes, looking at regionalization in some ways is probably a really good idea, right? I know that Rep. Webster has the Perkiomen Watershed Initiative, and I know that we're part of that watershed, and that there's going to be opportunities coming from that to help with flooding and stormwater management, infrastructure improvements. So just keeping an eye on that as we're looking at improvements. That's a 4-county program, so a lot of things that are happening upstream. There's some movement on that now. We should see some benefit to that locally, lower in the watershed. But also, just to the point when Mr. Moore was talking about volunteer services, I was thinking about last August there was a fire in Collegeville, And it was 2 blocks down from Ursinus, and I happened to be on Ursinus's campus when that fire happened. There were 5 fire companies that responded to it. The Collegeville Fire Company was, I believe, the 3rd or the 4th on the scene because it's all volunteer run. And our fire company does an awesome job here. I live right by the fire company. I hear how quick the responses are from the time the signal goes off. But I do think, whatever we can do to support them in terms of thinking about what they want in terms of regionalization and who's responding when and how that works, because City View is right on the border with Lower Providence. Like, I don't even know how that works in terms of response times. So it's just, as we're planning things, as we move forward as a community all across the township, I think being mindful of those big picture things and being strategic are just super, super important. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
If you'd like, I can just bounce a response off of that, just so we're, if you guys are okay with that. So as far as our fire marshal does review with members of Worcester Fire all these plans as part of his review. So we do work with them to make sure that they're aware of what's going on and things along those lines. Secondarily, we do have mutual aid agreements with all the surrounding EMS and fire companies. So when you see all those engines responding, that's kind of built in. It's done with a box system through the county. So the county draws the boxes on who's going to respond to what, both fire and EMS. That's why we have a couple of providers within the township. But that's all dispatched at a county level, and they'll call for like additional forces from as necessary as far as that goes. Just that's kind of the machinations of how it works.
Yes, thank you. I'm aware of all of that.
Oh, cool.
But I was thinking that not all people are, right? So as that comes up, like that's something for the township to make sure that we're talking about and is included in those planning documents so people understand.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more public comments? Saying none, motion to adjourn? Wait,
So
wait,
moved.
wait,
I just
wait,
want
wait.
a couple things I want to say.
Oh, we were so close.
I know, I'm sorry. I know it's been long, but there's just a couple quick things. So I just wanted to say thank you to the Farmers Union for their successful horse show on June 6th. It was a really beautiful day. It was a hot day, not as hot as it was supposed to be, but it was, again, they did a great job. Their events are always a good time, and I especially wanted to thank them for, in addition to the event itself, they're really trying to cultivate basically a nonprofit midway where we have other organizations come and set up a booth. So we had the Ladies Auxiliary that was there, the Historical Society was there, the SPCA was there as well, and I might be missing one more, but I think Peter Wentz maybe was there too. Yeah, that's who I was missing. So it's and the Friends of Worcester. I can't forget the Friends of Worcester are also there. So I think it's great because they're really fostering, as Amy was talking about, that community connection and bringing. We have so many great organizations, and they're starting to work together and support each other, which is a great thing in our community. So I want to say thank you to that. Also on the same day, we also had the FC Monco Soccer Club. They had their annual Mark Smalls soccer tournament, and that was over at Huebner Park. So it's another great opportunity for Worcester to shine because we have a beautiful park, and it's great that FC Monco is carrying on that soccer tradition and also honoring Mark Smalls, who was a resident of Lower Providence. So I wanted to say thank you to them. I don't think anybody's here for that, but I just wanted them to know. And then Amy kind of previewed, I just wanted to mention, please, please, please come out to our concert on next Wednesday, the 24th. We're having it at Huebner Park. It's sponsored by the township. The name of the band is Mike Greer.
Mike Greer and company. He's pretty well known on the local circuit.
Yeah.
We'll also have a couple food trucks there.
Mr. Softy, you said?
Mr. Softy,
An ice cream truck, yeah.
and some general, it's a hot dog and variety of Americana type food.
Yeah.
The other field truck.
So hire an Etsy witch so that the weather will be good, and make sure that you come out, because I think it's going to be really a fun time. And, you know, Dan and his staff have worked really hard to put this together for everyone in the township. So please spread it far and wide. Come out next Wednesday. So that's all I have now. Go ahead.
We good?
Yeah.
Good?
I'm good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Moved.
Move. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming and sticking to the end.